BBC News, I'm John Shea. A senior Ukrainian minister, Irina Vereshchuk, says around 13,000 people were evacuated from a number of Ukrainian cities on Saturday, almost twice the number who got out the day before. But she said no one had managed to leave the besieged port of Mariupol and blamed obstruction by Russian forces. Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister Olha Stefanishyna told the BBC the situation was replicated in other areas.
There is a number of cities, mostly on the south of Ukraine and closer to Belarus border, which has been taken under control by Russians. And what we see right now, that these cities face a very severe humanitarian disaster because they do not give access for medicines, for food supplies, for humanitarian aid, and they do not reflect the request to provide for this humanitarian corridor.
The Ukrainian military says Russian troops fired on a convoy of women and children being evacuated from Peremoha, a village east of Kiev. 7 people are reported to have been killed. Russian forces are approaching Kiev. Lise Doucette, who's in the capital, says artillery fire has been lighting up the night sky.
It was like rolling thunder, the volley of explosions, how loud they were. We're told they weren't necessarily any closer, but the Russians may have been using heavier ordnance, and we understand it was like artillery duels with the Ukrainians firing artillery and the Russians as well. We understand that a lot of the fighting was the town on the outskirts to the northwest of Kiev, the town of Irpin. What used to be a charming little town in the suburbs is now a blackened wasteland, flattened by incessant Russian shelling and artillery strikes. They're now fighting for control of that town because it is a gateway to the capital.
The Director General of the UN nuclear agency, the IAEA, has expressed renewed concern about the situation in Ukraine. The statement from Rafael Grossi came after he spoke to officials in both Russia and Ukraine. Ben Lowings reports.
According to Ukrainian officials, Russia plans to take full and permanent control of the nuclear power plant at Zaporizhia, but Moscow denies this. The IAEA said the Russians told them that Ukrainian staff were still managing operations at Zaporizhia. The Russians said they had experts there acting as consultants. Ukraine says 400 Russian soldiers are on the site. The IAEA says nuclear safety is clearly at risk. Rafael Grossi said the plant's operators had to be able to make decisions without undue pressure.
President Biden has approved $200 million in additional military assistance for Ukraine. The measure paves the way for immediate shipments of equipment, including small arms, as well as anti-armour and anti-aircraft systems. World News from the BBC. Another group of about 300 Nigerians have returned home after fleeing the conflict in Ukraine. They were mainly students and an infant who'd been stuck in the war-torn northeastern city of Sumy. They flew from Hungary to the Nigerian capital Abuja. The Nigerian government has released $8.5 million for the immediate evacuation of about 5,000 of its nationals who remain in Ukraine. Iraq's state news agency says Erbil, the capital of the autonomous Kurdish region in the north of the country, has been hit by several missiles. Video on social media shows several large explosions in the vicinity of the American consulate. No casualties were reported. The authorities in Croatia say it's still not clear who launched a military drone which crashed in the capital Zagreb on Thursday. The Prime Minister, Andrej Plenković, expressed concern that the drone apparently flew from Ukraine without being intercepted by NATO, of which Croatia is a member. Investigators will examine the black box of the Soviet-era aircraft. In Britain, protesters calling for reform of London's Metropolitan Police have blocked roads in the centre of the capital. The protest marked almost a year since a gathering to pay respects to Sarah Everard, who was murdered by a police officer, ended in clashes and arrests. Greg Mackenzie was there on Saturday as hundreds of demonstrators marched towards the police headquarters.
Many were carrying banners reading "Police are perpetrators" as they made their way towards Charing Cross Police Station, setting off bright blue and green smoke flares along the way. The protest ended with the campaign group Sisters Uncut activating hundreds of rape alarms. The Met has said it is trying to rebuild trust following misconduct cases, but the campaign group say they are going to continue protesting until radical changes are made within the policing system.
BBC News.